make things shake. You know I gets that money,
all day.
that cake, I gets that bread. You know I make things shake. You know I gets that money, that cake, I gets that bread.
I'm back in the building.
You know I get that money.
Put a little dirty South swag over there. You know what it is.
If you got, just think about this concept. If you get put on to this information, you will just internalize and blame yourself for a lot of stuff to the point where it will just hurt your self-esteem. Can anybody relate to what I'm saying? Like you get in a space where you look at your life and you start to be, you know, so accountable, but you get no information, no education on, you know, the things that you're realizing about your life. And then it gets to the point where you blame it all on you from a negative space, not from a growth space. Go ahead, Brittany.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. Like, I really don't want to speak up because it's a little bit embarrassing. Because I have the information. But yeah, like, just like what you're saying, like, I know what I need to do. It's just a matter of, like, doing it and, like, educate myself or just taking the steps. And then I do blame myself, like, because I know it's me.
Right, but okay. So, and I love that you sharing that, Brittany. Thank you for speaking up, even though you didn't want to. What you need, and anybody that's feeling similar to what she's feeling, you have to then create that community, that support system around you, where there are people on what you're on. It will make you move your feet. So, for example, if any of y'all brought my my workbook. That's out on Amazon, right? It's a workbook. It's for you to write in. There's a part in there that talks about like line dancing in the urban and the black community, right? Where we get together at cookouts and shit. And when you see people like get together, and let's say we doing the electric slide or you know, whatever group dance we're doing, right? You might not know the moves up front. But if you get out here and get involved around people that we're all moving accordingly, eventually you're going to see enough of the same steps and movements going on around you. You're going to catch on. It's you, right? That are on the same thing you're on. And this is why we could have, like, I came to the cookout on to get out here and dance and, you know, have a good time with y'all. But it's going to take for 2, 3, 4, 5 of y'all to get out there. Then I'm going to come on out there. Then y'all stepping, and when y'all really get the environment for yourself. It's not just, and this is why there are some people, they done read a bunch of books and they still ain't got into the work. There are some people, they are sick of their own shit. Like they in the accountability, but they ain't got the information. Then there are people that I'm sick of my own shit. I'm reading the books and I'm getting involved. All those together is creating that community, that environment, that system of people, places, and things. Do y'all get what?
TV, and it was this show called Marrying Millions, and this girl, her husband, he found her, like they met.
No, we can hear. Go, Brittany.
He was at some sort of event, like, and he was speaking, and she was in the front row, but it was like it just reminded me of something where you were like, put yourself in rooms that make you feel uncomfortable, like put yourself in rooms with people that you normally wouldn't be in.
Yep.
And then here, this girl, she's front row, and this guy's like, oh, God, like, she's fine, and he's a millionaire, and I don't know, it just made me think about you, like, just putting yourself in rooms with people that are in a upper class.
Yes, there is a, and I don't know if it's, because I like what Brittany's saying, I don't know if, I got to look it back up again. But there, I don't know if it's a I want to say Japanese. I'm gonna look up the phrase in our next meeting. I'll be able to tell y'all exactly. But it's basically a thing that their culture does where at least once a year you do some sort of uncomfortable, life-changing thing, like something that is not normally you. You purposely do that every year. You pick out something, some sort of event, some sort of something in your life that you're able to say, this is a new milestone for me for this year. So every year you're able to look back and say, okay, in 2020, I did blah. In 2021, I did this. And then in 2022, I did this. And then in 2023, it's making it where it is a part of your lifestyle, right? To get into shit that you're not normally into. The other thing is, a lot of us look back and we know that we come from some fucked up family situations. And I don't mean fucked up like you had to be abused and all that shit, but fucked up because we know that we were not equipped properly for adulthood. We just weren't on things that were like not costly to get the information on. And because it wasn't costly, you almost beat yourself up even more, or it sticks on your self-esteem even more. The fact that somebody didn't give you some shit that would have been so valuable and it was free for them to give it to you. Anybody ever had that thought or that mindset about when you look back? Like we come from a lot of shit where it's like, damn, a bitch could have told me this for free and it would have changed my fucking life.
Yes, I feel that way all the time.
Yes, all the
I'm like, mama, what the hell? But you know, I can't blame them, blame her. Like my parents, I feel like I yes, there's a lot of things, but also she didn't know, she didn't learn the stuff, so how was she gonna teach me? But yeah, I definitely feel that way all the time.
Yeah, and then there's stuff that when we, but I ain't gonna lie, there are things I've talked to family members about, and they did know it. They did. Like, you can't blame a bitch for some stuff they did not know, right? What I can do is I hold people accountable for how they had access to knowing and they just didn't care to know after having children. They still immaturely carried themselves around as though they didn't have a responsibility to know more. That is something that you are, as the parent, at fault for. And I tell this to even us as parents. If you know, okay, I'm me right now, and I birthed a child, and I know good and goddamn well I don't know enough to set them up correctly. In that moment, it is understood with myself that I need to go know more. I don't get to just say, well, I don't know things about that, and that's the child just gonna have to accept that I don't know that, and they ain't gonna get that from me. But then there are the moments where anybody, like as a full-grown adult, you've talked to family members or maybe your parent, and it was stuff they did know. They just didn't tell your ass.
I was just going to say that, Doris. See, it's a lot. Just honestly, our parents know more than what we let on.
Right.
If you sit down and really ask your parents, they really knew it. They just didn't have
low confront.
They just didn't care to give more information. Yep.
Yes. Low confront.
Mom knew a lot.
And you know what?
Yes.
And this is real shit. You know, like they grew up in a time where it was like they got to stay in a child's place. So it was shit you should have been motherfucking telling me as a child. Now I'm grown and I'm lost as fuck. And you think that shit made sense. It did not. Somebody, when I was a child, when I was 14, 15, 16, 17, some of this shit that you knew I was about to run into, motherfucker, you should have said something. Keep on talking about a goddamn child's place for the sake of you keeping your self-esteem or whatever it was doing for you guys as adults. And we out here fucking drowning the same way y'all drowned as soon as we became adults. That shit wasn't right. And it ain't make sense. Go ahead, Tamika.
Yeah, and you're right about that, love. And it's like, even now, like with my sisters, like they'll say, like, well, mama didn't teach us, so my kids just got to figure it out on their own too.
Yep.
Like, I'm like, that's the dumbest shit ever.
Yep.
And my mom, she'll say the same thing. Like, I had to figure certain things. So, yeah, I can't just teach y'all everything. Yeah, you can teach us some of the stuff that you know will help us along the way.
Yes.
Instead of making us have to figure it out.
But I'm going to tell you something. Even them old sayings where they talk about like a person got to see for themselves, and some stuff we didn't have to see for ourselves. You could have fucking broke it the fuck down repeatedly and programmed me like you did with other shit, like cleaning up your house and certain things. You could have programmed me into understanding that here is the correct information.
My grandma was like that. And my grandma, my great grandma, they're Portuguese, so they speak different language. They only speak it amongst each other, so they never taught the kids so that the kids would know. And it was always that. We did that to make sure everybody stay out of our business. They didn't want the kids in their business, so they didn't speak and teach them that. They just spoke it amongst themselves. So it's still pretty much kind of like the same thing as well.
The shit is, I'm telling y'all, it's so important. And this is why I said, similar to what Brittany was saying, when you get older, if you don't really understand where the disconnects were with the generation prior to you and the gaps in the generational curses you need to break with the generation under you, you will sit in a space where accountability becomes such a negative thing, and it shouldn't be. Like, as I become more accountable, it should be awakening. That's why I said this particular part of the book, for me, was the most important. It says, you can think of the true self as an extremely accurate, self-informing neurological feedback system that points each individual toward optimal energy and functioning. Optimal energy and functioning. It says the physical sensations that accompany experiencing the true self suggests that whatever this self is, it's based on our biology as human beings. And then it also goes on to say, it talks about what does the true self want, right? And it goes on to explain, it says, your true self has the same needs as a flourishing, healthy child: to grow, to be known, and express itself. And as adults, we end up not realizing it is the child in us that is pushing us to want to be something different than what we are. Did anybody understand that when they read it? It says, breaking down in order to wake up. People experience a breakdown when the pain of living in role cells and healing fantasies begins to outweigh any potential benefits. It says, most psychological growth exposes some distressing truths about what we've been doing with our lives. Your true self wants you to see what's really going on. It tries to wake you up because it wants to stop believing that your emotionally immature parents knew what was best for you and that creating a role self is better than being who you really are. It knows better than to let a fantasy run your life. That's the key in the book. Your true self wants to see what's really going on. It tries to wake up because it wants to stop believing that your emotionally immature parents knew what was best for you and that creating a role self is better than being who you really are. It knows better than to let a fantasy run your life.
So basically, your subconscious mind knows that what you believe is a lie?
All of y'all that have, for example, came across my platform, every single one of y'all, and it hit, right? It hit and it woke you up at some point. That's what this is describing. Mm-hmm. Like, it is that it says, okay, this is when your true self start to talk to you. Like, yo, like Chrissy, we know this some bullshit. This shit we've been playing in, it's called role self. This fucking role we've been playing as ourself instead of really being ourself and being honest that we come from some fucked up shit. We got some fucked up shit going on. It's some stuff that we shouldn't be doing. It's some shit we shouldn't allow. It's some stuff we should have said. It's some shit we shouldn't have said. Like Brittany said, it's some things we should be moving on because we know better. It says your true self wants you to see what's really going on. Your true self. It says it tries to wake you up because it wants you to stop believing that your emotionally immature parents knew what was best for you and that creating a role self is better than being who you really are. Now, I'm going to tell y'all something. A lot of people, just on an everyday basis in general, right? They are in a space where they believe this role self, this person that they're playing, right, is better than being who they really are. That's why so many people be fake as fuck. And for a lot of us, we used to be fake as fuck. In relationships and in friendships and going through stuff with family, acting as though we are something that we're not. I'm going to tell you something else. A lot of us as women, the female gender, we're going through that. We're trying to take on roles and do things that this is not us. This is some role self we're playing. It's a lot of things we're going along with we're not even really built for. And I'm sure some of y'all, when you read it, it probably didn't stick out like it stuck out just now when I read it.
Yeah, and you broke it down to where we could actually understand it too.
So then it talks about, and again, this is why I say this is one of the most important chapters. It says, waking up from an outdated role self. People often keep playing their childhood role self far into adulthood because they believe it keeps them safe and it is the only way to be accepted. But when the true self has had enough, when you sick of your shit, right? This fucking fake ass narrative we playing like my mama and them did everything right. Like these choices I motherfucking made with having children and picking the people I picked is okay. Like what I've been doing with my money is great. When I stop fucking faking, like that shit is on the up and up and I get real with myself. It says because they believe it keeps them safe and it is the only way to be accepted. It says, but when the true self has had enough of the role playing, people often get a wake up call in the form of an unexpected emotional symptoms. I'm sure that part you didn't read it the same as I just read it.
I can relate to that.
Who did it stick out to? Some of y'all probably missed that when you read it. You probably missed how important this chapter was. It says people often keep playing their childhood role self far into adulthood because they believe it keeps them safe and it is the only way to be accepted. It says, but when the true self has had enough of the role playing, people often get a wake-up call in the form of unexpected emotional symptoms. Some of y'all probably felt like you're having a fucking emotional breakdown or you don't realize why energy-wise and mentally you've had enough.
Ooh.
I definitely went through that when I turned 40.
That's me for sure.
Yeah.
You find yourself in a space, regardless of what your age, like I'm crying, I'm irritated, I'm agitated with life. And it's my life that I created, but it's like I'm having a fucking breakdown about this shit. This is when your true self trying to come the fuck out.
Yeah, I get to talking. I'll be like, girl, you fucking knew better. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck was you thinking to choose this life when you knew it was going to lead down this road? Like, it's a whole self-talk you do to yourself. You be mad, cussing yourself out, crying. Like, you better get your shit together. You're going to be like this next year and the year after and the year after and the year after. Like, it's literally a whole thing you go through once you actually realize what's happening.
Yep.
On the opposite end, I remember trying to be somebody that I wasn't because I was trying to be who I thought my parents wanted me to be or who I thought I was supposed to be.
That ain't the opposite, Brittany. That's the same as what it's saying. You're trying. It's people often keep playing their childhood role far into adulthood. When you become grown, this shit ain't about what the fuck your parents want you to be no more. You playing that role.
Even when I was a teenager, it was like, I don't know, it was like I still felt like I was supposed to be this type of person and these type of goals and like this is who I was and I tried to kind of camouflage and then I got grown, I moved out, you know, and I still tried to like, it wasn't until I was probably in my late 20s where I was finally like, you know what, like this is who I am. And I learned a lot from my dad because my parents, and he kind of was like, you got to be happy. Like,
yes, because
what, like you got to live your life.
Yes,
You
because
can't live it for nobody else.
I'm going to tell you something. I love what you're saying, Brittany, because our life choices and the things we go through, right? They come from, again, you know, the generational curses and the family you were raised out of, but also your choices, and they push you towards your true self. That's why you like when people talk about a midlife crisis or going through that state in their life where they realize I'm fucking depressed and I'm not being myself or I'm involved in things that this stuff is not really me. That wake up, it's when your true self starts to break the fuck up out of this shit that you're trying to smother it with. It says waking up to what you really feel. Sometimes giving up a healthy fantasy of how we will finally win love means we have to face unwanted feelings about people close to us. And this is when y'all hear me on lives talking because they can't accept that their parents the people that raised them, the people close to them, they cannot accept it. That these people didn't know what the fuck they was doing all the way around the board. And especially when you come up in like our communities, a lot of us are just brainwashed to believe that mama just always knew what was best. Daddy just always knew what was best. And in all reality, that shit couldn't be further from the truth. Them people was just doing day to day whatever they thought made sense at that time. Half the shit wasn't planned out. It wasn't thought through. It was based on some shit they was going through mentally. And a lot of us are parenting that same way. A lot of us are going through relationships that same. We don't know what the fuck we doing. And we ain't educating ourselves. We're not getting in groups and piecing together the shit that we're missing. We just kind of winging it and lying to ourselves. It says many of us tend to feel guilty and ashamed for feelings we deem to be unacceptable. We're convinced that the only way to be a good person is to repress these feelings. However, if we quash our real feelings for too long, they may bubble up in ways that force us to stop and look at what's wrong.
They remind me of my kids follow this YouTuber, and he basically kept going from relationship to relationship, and it never worked. And he finally just said, "I don't want to be with one woman. That's why it's not working." Mm-hmm. Like, I would tell the truth. I want a woman that's okay with me doing what I want to do. Like, I respect her in public, but like off the record, I want to still be able to do what I want to do.
Yep. And
he finally like how to live a life.
I love what you're saying, Jessica, because a lot of us, when it comes down to exactly what she's saying, we don't realize that a good majority of people don't put themselves out there as their true self. They go along with, what the culture or what the world or what social media says they should be on. And this is why, for example, like she gave a lot of men, they're unwilling. You got women screaming, just be real. If you want to be with multiple people, or if you're trying to mess with her and me, just tell the truth. And they can't do it because they're afraid of being their true self, because they so far into this role self, this role playing. When in all reality, if you're a grown adult, that you take care of yourself with your basics, you have the ability to just express and be on whatever you want and take to and gravitate and build your circle of people that's on that too. And it's the same for us as a lot of women. We will sit and say we okay with or go along with things that we're not for the sake of trying to play this particular role. It talks about waking up to anger. It says because anger is an expression of individuality, it's the emotion that emotionally immature parents most often punish their children for having. But anger can be a helpful emotion because it gives people energy to do things differently, and it lets them see themselves as worthy of sticking up for. It's often a good sign when you're overly responsible, anxious, or depressed. People begin to be consciously aware of feeling angry. It indicates that their true self is coming to fore and that they're beginning to care about themselves. Who did that stick out to? Some of this y'all probably didn't even catch when you were going through it.
Thank you. You're on the right. I definitely resonate with that, love.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's something I've been reminding myself of. I actually heard a TED talk about that, and she was just saying how anger really inspires action in people when you just really just so fed up and you're angry. And I've been really like I've been assessing my life, and I have been feeling a lot of anger, and I've been just trying to redirect that and just make that be fire underneath me to make the decisions that I know I need to, so that I can not be angry and I can be happy with myself.
Right.
That's the only way I used to maneuver. I couldn't I call it my maximum capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I'm angry, I'm pissed off. That was the only way for me to make a decision sometimes. And I used to tell people, I used to make decisions out of, once I'm angry and I've hit my rooftop, because it takes a long time for me to get to that point where I am angry, a long time, because it builds up in me.
Right.
So, and once I'm angry, I'm done. And then it's hard for me to go back because I have accepted so much and tolerated so much that it's almost it'll be a trauma for me. It'll be a trigger for me to go back. Like, I used to move like that. I don't even know if that's healthy, but hell, it kept me from stop going back to these toxic people. But I don't know if it was a healthy way of moving or not.
Right. It says, because I love that y'all are realizing like this is an awakening part of this book. It says internalizers are notorious for not taking good care of themselves, believing it's up to them to improve or fix everything. They often end up neglecting their own health, especially their need for rest. As they work to attend to everything they think they need to do, they often overlook even basic physical cues, including pain and fatigue. And I know y'all know somebody like that, or you've been in a space where you've been like that.
That's me every day, every time.
And it's not healthy. This is when y'all hear me on lives talking about somebody that cared too much, to the point where you losing yourself and you think there's some sort of award for that. You ain't gonna but kill yourself, work yourself to death. You will look like the big mama of the family where you poured into everybody else just to lose yourself. And it didn't have to be that way.
I wanted to piggyback on anger if I could. So I was listening to this podcast that my counselor did, and basically the podcast was about how they had to co-parent, and his wife now was expressing how she was jealous of his baby mother's anger, because she was saying, like, you know, the way she was treating me, she was like, I was holding my ground, but she was like, I was low-key jealous because she was like, I never got the chance to express myself in that way, and I'm seeing the difference. And I was like, wow, that was amazing. And another thing that they said that resonated with me, and the only reason I'm bringing this up is because of the anger. I just got the book, so I haven't been able to read it. I just joined last week, so I've been reading a little bit. Like,
skip to this chapter. Like, when you get a chance, skip to this one and read this bitch. But go ahead.
So they were saying that you gotta be comfortable with being a villain. Like, when you start to tell your truth, like you gotta be okay with being a bad guy in somebody else's story. So that just made me, like, the points that y'all just made up, that y'all just made out right now, just made me think of those too. So what was the chapter? Because I came in a little late.
Somebody put the chapter in the chat for her that I'm talking about. It then says waking up through relationship breakdowns. It says relationship problems present a huge opportunity to wake up. Given that we tend to play out painful patterns learned in childhood in our significant adult relationships, it isn't surprising that so many people come from therapy because of relationship issues. It says, and because intimate adult relationships are so emotionally arousing, they tend to activate unresolved issues about not getting our emotional needs met. We often project issues about our parents onto our partners in relationships. They may become even more angry. It says, then we may become even more angry with them because at an unconscious level, they remind us of the past in addition to whatever is happening in the present. I've explained this in so many ways on my platform. So many ways. It goes on to say waking up from idolizing others. And some of y'all have been in that space where you've been in a relationship with somebody or around somebody where you begin to idolize them. It says one of the hardest fantasies to wake up from is the belief that our parents are wiser and know more than we do. How many times I done said this? This is the part of the main reason why a lot of people can't accept my content. Because a lot of the things I say, it go against who the fuck they idolize, which is their mama or their daddy or whoever raised them. This is the reason why so many women, when I get on social media and I just state facts about how single mother-headed households produce the worst product, they can't accept it. They can't accept it because they don't want to believe that their mother didn't know what the fuck she was doing. But it's a fact. It says one of our hardest fantasies to wake up from is the belief that our parents are wiser and know more than we do. It can be embarrassing and even scary for children to see their parents as weaknesses. It says even as adults, people may strongly resist seeing their parents' immaturities for what it is. It can feel better to remain naive about their limitations than to look at them objectively. Subconsciously, perhaps we feel protective of our parents' vulnerability. That motherfucker there, it hits.
they literally go from being your parents to looking like one of your kids.
Yes.
You care and you love them, but you know deep down inside that in the long run you're going to have to take care of them.
Yep. 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 And I'm telling y'all, most people, like even people y'all know, friends and stuff that y'all try to like put onto my content or share a book or two that we read in this book club, a lot of them can't receive it because of just that one paragraph I just read. They can't. It's uncomfortable. It's too much to just be real that your mama ain't know what the fuck she was doing all the time. And then you got to accept with that truth that you don't know what the fuck you doing all the time. And let's say you in a relationship and you got children and you trying to make your partner, because remember that role self, you trying to make your partner believe you know what you're doing and you're a good catch. You trying to make your children stay, faithful in you and that you know what you're doing and you're a good parent. You'll never confront this shit. Never. 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 You'll fucking just keep faking in that role self until you have one of them fucking overly emotional moments like this book explains where you break the fuck down and you finally willing to open. When I said when they reach that teenage age, they start to know it already anyway that you don't know what the fuck you doing a good majority of the time.
You know what, Dorsey? I was watching one thing that make me cringe as a mom of a teenager is when I see these grown-ass people blaming teenagers for their behavior, right? Yep. Like, I'm not saying don't hold them accountable, but what pisses me off is when they say, I did what I could. Yep. If he don't do this or she don't do this and he decided to do this, that's on him. Yep. No, the fuck is not. It reveals what you've taught him and exposed him or she to. When I hear people like blame a kid for their behavior, but they don't know how to be accountable for their own behavior. That shit rubs me wrong.
They in that role self, Chrissy. They in that.
And I have a 14-year-old boy. He's never disrespected me. He's never wanted to run away. He's never wanted to do drugs. Like nothing. I don't have an issue out of my 14-year-old.
It's
because of.
They're in that role self.
They're in that role self.
Yep, they in that role self. Mm-hmm. But when you in that role self, it'll make you believe that it's just happening. Like that child just turned out like that. They just became like that. Even when you look at stuff, I'll do one very simple. When you look at stuff like if any of y'all watch that Jeffrey Dahmer show on Netflix, right? The series of his life, right? On the surface, a bitch would have you to believe that, he was just a bad apple and he turned out like that, right? But if you understand biology and psychology and you understand genetics and things like that, everything about the parents plays a role in how the child turns out. And when you look at shit like that, even down to the father introducing the taxidermy to him, it opened the door for the shit to just wide open, go in the direction of the exact shit you seen him end up doing. Mm-hmm. Because when you mix that with the shit they overlooked about his young personality, the awkwardness, the lack of social skills, the things that you could see early on, but when you in your role self as the parent, you don't confront real shit that is going on because you're not even confronting your real self.
Dorsey, the mama and the daddy had two different, even though they lived in the same household, the mama and the daddy had two different experiences of their son.
Yep.
Like the mama completely denied the behavior. Oh, he was fine. Nothing was wrong with him. The dad was like, I saw it.
He knew.
It was wrong because I had my own D's.
He knew.
Like, I battled. But the mama was like, nothing was wrong with him. He was
fine.
But
like, Chrissy, the idea is they was in their own shit. Like when you look back, both of them knew that their son was socially awkward. They knew that in any one moment's time back before he ever became what he became, right? But they was in their own shit. What shit was they in? They relationship shit. They arguing about their shit. They drug addiction shit. Their problems. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Drug addiction shit, their problems. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you were a direct cause of what the fuck he became.
Love, it's kind of like the intervention. That's exactly like
come on.
The intervention. Yeah. It's the exact same thing.
Yes, I'm glad y'all, the pieces are connecting. It talked about waking up to strengths. It talked about waking up to a new set of values. It talked about, and this part really stuck out, waking up by getting free from childhood issues. It says working through childhood emotional injuries is the most effective way of waking up from repeating the past. It says, when I say working through, I mean the mental and emotional process of coming to grips with painful realities. It says, and I'm going to read it again. When I say working through, I mean the mental and emotional process of coming to grips with painful realities. Therapists will call it unpacking or doing the work. Think of it as a process of breaking down something that's initially too big to swallow. You chew on it until it can become a digestible part of your history. Research suggests that what has happened to people matters less than whether they processed it. Look, let me go back. I skipped over words. Research suggests that what has happened to people matters less than whether they process what has happened to them or what happened to them. Do y'all understand that sentence?
Yes. I want to be honest about something with y'all because this is a judgment-free zone.
Mm-hmm.
But I know